Curling can be both the finished look and the foundation for the look. I will teach you how to approach curling with technique, how to manipulate hair using heat, a variety of tools, and using the hair itself. We will look at numerous ways to create texture with curling. Once we can control the texture of the hair, we can then control movement and shape based on that foundation. So the first thing we want to think about when dealing with the hair is to prepare the hair to get curled. So I want to make sure the hair is smooth without being too straight, because if it's too straight, then it's not going to hold a curl very well. So I'm just going to use a Denman brush or a nice loose paddle brush to just help smooth that hair out so it's not fluffy and textured, so that I can put in that foundation of curl and it'll hold well without it being too set. So I'm just wrapping it and rooting it and leafing it just to smooth out and condense that hair so it's nice and manageable. Once that's complete, I'm going to walk you through a number of different curling techniques, and then we're going to walk through how we can work with that texture in different ways. So I'm going to take a section from the top of the crown to behind the ear, and I'm just going to work in horizontal sections up through the back and then through the sides. And then we're going to talk about how to control and move that hair in different ways. So the first section I'm going to take is a horizontal section at the nape of the neck. I don't want to take too much hair. I want to take as much hair as is manageable to me to work with. The first technique I'm going to show you is what we call root rocking. So what this is going to do is going to create movement and lift right at the root of the base of the hair. So I'm just taking that curling iron with the iron wide open, and I'm not even grabbing that bottom tongue, and I'm just going to let that flip open and wide, and I'm just going to rock that base of that hair just to create a nice strong foundation. And this is just the beginning of that curl. Now this could be done at the root anywhere, but really we want to think about this as a root rocking technique. And then after that's complete, we're going to wrap the hair flat around that iron. And then as I wrap it flat, I can push that hair down closer into that base of that iron. But the idea is we want to keep it flat so it's like a ribbon. And this is going to create a very specific curl. And then once I want to get the ends in, I can bring the iron out a little bit and then roll that iron back through to set that. Now when dealing with a flat barrel curl, we always want to make sure that there's a foundation of product in the hair. So I'm using, number one, high heat on my curling iron to really create that set. And then I have some kind of spray, some kind of hold-based product to help support whatever it is that I'm creating. So as you can see, I'm wrapping that hair flat around that barrel. And then as I get to the ends, I pull the iron through, close those ends, and then roll the iron back up. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a curl from the foundation of the root all the way to the ends. It's fast, it's efficient, it's modern. This curl is actually a set curl from root all the way to ends. So after I've created a flat barrel curl across, I can use a brush. The idea is we can explore what happens with that curl using different ways in which we brush the hair. We've created texture that can be the texture as the look, or it can be the foundation for whatever we're going to create. The next technique I'm going to show you is what we call a twisted barrel curl. A twisted barrel curl and a flat barrel curl are very similar, except in the flat barrel curl I've allowed the hair to wrap flat around the iron. On a twisted barrel curl, I'm actually twisting the hair, but I'm not actually purposely twisting it, I'm just holding onto it. And just by holding onto the hair will actually naturally twist as I wrap it around the iron. So we're still going to start with that foundational curl, rocking that root, rocking that base so that that curl is set from the root. And then when that's all finished, then from there, we're going to wrap that curl around the iron. And when we're wrapping it around that iron, we're allowing it to twist, working round and round and round until I get to the ends, and then I can pull that hair out and then set it and then roll it back up to complete the set. So what we're doing is we're exploring how to control texture, and that every technique we do ends up creating a different result. and now we have a twisted barrel curl, and then we look at the difference in the looks. And so as I explore the different look, I'm going to start first with a wide tooth comb, and then with my fingers playing around with the hair. So what that then tells me is that I can get many different options with this. So when I'm working in this way, I'm allowing the hair to kind of express itself through the technique. We're going to explore in a little bit how we actually can manipulate the hair, even though we have a technique in there that will end up driving the hair as we want it to go. The next technique I want to show you is what we call ribboning the hair with a curling iron. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with that base, and then I'm going to wrap the hair around that iron and close it. And then as I close it, I'll bring the iron down a little bit. And then what you'll notice is as I unroll the hair, I twist it. So what that's going to do is it's actually creating a curl and a twist at the same time. So as you pay attention to the technique, I feed it in through the iron with it closed. So I'm smoothing out and setting that curl. And then as I'm doing that, I'm unrolling the iron and then also twisting it as I go. So I'm creating this really beautiful tight ribbon. And I can create looser ribbons or tighter ribbons. And this is going to give me a very different curl pattern. So I've showed you a flat barrel curl, a twisted barrel curl, and now I have this ribbon curl. And really, essentially, all we're doing is learning how to control texture with curling it in different ways. So as we explore the technique again, I have it in the iron, I'm smoothing it out as I go, and then I'm closing the iron, and I'm wrapping it around and twisting it, and then closing it and twisting it. Now after this technique is complete, I can then explore what the actual look is. I can start with my fingers to play with the curl, and then I can use a comb to pull it through, and then I can use a brush. The next technique I want to show you is what we call a rolling wave curl. So the way we do this is actually using the iron to put that foundation from the top and then under and the top. So I start with the top and I just roll it to create that bend at the root. Now after that's completed, I'm then going to reverse the iron. So I'm basically just creating this roll through that wave. And you can do broader waves or you can do tighter waves depending on what you want to create. For this particular look, I'm actually making them a little wider so that there's more space between those waves going over and then under and then over and then under. So as you'll notice the technique, I'm just rolling up and then down, up and then down. And I really want you to start to think about exploring how heat and product really create a support for different looks, and that hair is essentially fabric that we can manipulate as long as we have the tools and as long as we have the awareness and skill to create that texture that we're looking for. So after I've created that wave that I'm looking for, I'm then going to explore the different opportunities there. I'm going to start with my fingers, just pulling it through and see what that wave looks like. And then from there, I'll then comb it to see the different varieties of options and really play with it to see if I want it to be messy or if I want it to be smoother. But as you can see, it creates this really beautiful, modern and different wave. The next technique I want to show you is actually a traditional finger wave that we're using with our Marcel irons. So I want you to pay very particular attention to how I work with this. And I'm going to first start with my comb to control that. And the way that we do that is first we think about trough and ridges. Trough is the round and then the ridge is actually the edge of that hair. So as I'm working, I'm just creating that fabric to bend and to move the way that I want. So you'll notice that I'm pulling with one side of the iron and then I'm pushing with the comb, pulling and pushing to create that roundness, that half moon or crescent to that trough. And then from there, I'll close down the iron, and then I'll use that comb to create the pressure, and then I'll bend that hair to create that ridge. And as I continue working, I'll work my way down using about 2 widths of the curling iron distance away from each section, so I get a really nice deep trough and a strong ridge. Now, as I'm working with this, you'll pay attention to, obviously, I look quite comfortable doing this. I've been doing this for a long time. So all of these techniques take practice, and the more you do them, the easier and the better you get at them. But I really want you to pay particular attention to how I work with the fabric of the hair, pushing and moving that hair so it goes in the direction that I want, bending it as I would like, using that comb to help create the ridge, and then using that iron to help bend and create that trough. And then also pulling and pushing depending on how I want that C shape or that crescent shape to be within each ridge and trough. So on one side, I'm showing you how to work with the comb, but sometimes it's nice to just work with the hands. So the next section, I'm going to show you how to actually just work with the hands, where I'm actually doing the same thing that I would with my comb, but what I'm doing is I'm pushing with one side and I'm pulling with the other to create that C shape and crescent. Now, also essential to this technique is taking a small enough section that if you take a very thick, dense section, then that curl won't be very strong. So this type of technique, you really want to take small sections that are manageable so you can really support and create that look as you would like. So as I work, I'm also using my fingers very carefully not to burn myself, holding and pushing to create that ridge, and really moving that hair around back and forth to create the trough and then the ridge. So you can use a comb or you can use your fingers to help manipulate that hair in any direction that you want. So even though we have this technique, then what we can do is we can start to bring things together. So I'm starting with my fingers, and then a comb, and then a brush. And even though we've created this, we still have many options. I can actually bring this hair all back together using my curling iron. So here you'll see I'm taking a large section now, and I'm just resetting that hair. Even though I've brushed it out, I still have the heat of the iron to work with, and then the product to support it, so that way I can continue to get the results that I'm looking for. So as I'm working, I'm using my fingers or using a comb, and I'm just using that tool to help support that ridge and that trough so that I can get a very classic finger waved result easily and quickly and efficiently. The next technique I want to show you is using a flat iron to create curl. So this technique we're going to show you two different ways to work with it. The first one is to go two distances away with your flat iron, and then you're going to roll the hair around your flat iron but keep it flat as you come through. And then you're going to ribbon that through as you come. So you'll notice that the hair is on top of the iron and I'm slowly going through with high heat. I have a nice set product to help support it, and I'm just coming through the hair to create a curl. Now this will be a curl, but it won't be very tight. It'll be a looser wave with a smooth texture. So as you'll notice, when it's all done, it ribbons up into the curl that I've just created. The next technique I want to show you is going not just two distances away, but three distances away. And what you'll notice is as I roll it, I actually roll the hair around the iron and then I roll the iron as well, so that I'm feeding the hair through the middle of that iron. So it's kind of like a figure 6 curl on a curling iron, except we're doing it with a flat iron. And as I come through and I'm feeding through that hair, I'm again taking my time, working my way through. And what you'll notice is this is going to create a tighter curl. So this springs that curl up more so that it's tighter and stronger. The first curl, where I'm only two distances away and I just roll it up halfway, creates a looser curl. The second technique, where I go three distances away and I roll the iron up and the hair at the same time, feeding it through the middle, gives it a tighter, stronger set curl. And then as we look at the texture, we then explore what it does. I start with my fingers, and then I can use a brush and a comb to really see what this curl is creating. So I have many options, whether it be just a nice beachy wave, or it's just a fast, smooth way to get that curl so that I can put the hair up and make it bendable and workable so that I can get the look I'm going for. The next technique I'm going to show you is what we call a flat pin curl set using your flat iron. So I'm going to take a section of hair and I'm going to wrap the hair around my fingers. And you'll notice I'm starting at the root and then wrapping the hair close to that. And as I wrap around, when I get to the ends, I put them through the middle of my fingers. This helps pull those ends through so that I have a nice set round curl. And then because I have that curl already set, I'm just going to flat iron it. So with high heat and really setting it with my flat iron, I'm going to create a very strong set curl. And again, depending on how strong I want it to be, I'll support it with product so that that curl remains more intact. And as you'll notice, it creates this beautiful set finish. And then if I want to end up curling those ends, I can take that flat iron and then bend it around. So I'm taking my fingers, I'm wrapping that hair around those fingers, and then from that root, working its way as I get to the ends, then pulling it through, and then pinching it to hold it in place. And then using my flat iron to hold that curl and set it so that the heat combined with the product, combined with the technique, give me the results that I'm looking for. And this is a great way to create curl very quickly. And then again, I can play with my fingers to pull that texture out, or I can use a comb or a brush to really explore the difference with the curl. The next technique I want to show you is what we call a figure 8 curl with a flat iron. So here I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to wrap the hair around my fingers, starting at the root, wrapping back and forth to create an 8 pattern. And then from there, I'm going to pull the hair out, pinching it together, and then I'm going to set it with my flat iron. So essentially all we're doing is we're just using heat and product and technique to create different textures. So here we're going to create a beautiful S bend that's going to be different than if I just use a pin curl set with my flat iron. So I'm pinching that hair together, holding it. and then I'm going to flat iron one side and then the other to create the texture that I'm looking for. And then as I let this out, you'll see that the curl that's created is soft and wavy. And then to smooth those ends, I can just take that iron and just bend and manipulate that hair as I see fit. And as we look at the texture, I play with the fingers first. And then I take a comb. And then I take a brush to really explore what kind of texture I'm creating. And as you'll notice here, I'm just manipulating that hair around to see what kind of end result I get as I work with this. The next technique I want to show you is a flat iron S-wave. So here I'm actually going to bend the hair the way that I want the hair to go, and then I'm just going to press it with the flat iron to put it in place. So you'll see I started by bending it one way, and then I'm feeding it through back and forth to create a beautiful S-wave. But as you'll notice, because I have heat combined with product, I'm creating a very strong result, and then I can take those ends and smooth them under and round by bending it and manipulating that hair using my tool. So at the end result, I have this beautiful set S-wave, and then I can brush it out with my fingers, a comb, or a brush. And then I can continue using the heat of my iron to support and control that hair, setting it as I like. The last technique I want to explore is actually this idea of driving the hair. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a triangle section in the front, and that triangle section is just going to represent a section of hair that we're going to maneuver and manipulate so we can actually see how hair is quite pliable. From here, I'm going to take vertical sections that are roughly the same size as my curling iron, and I'm going to do a very set flat barrel curl, and they're all going to be set in the same direction. We're going to take a section, we're going to support it with product, and then we're going to take that hair and wrap it flat around that iron, pulling it as close to the root as possible, wrapping it around, making sure that that set is well done. And as you'll notice also, that iron is pointed down, so when that curl falls, it falls into gravity and it's not going to twist. And I'm going to take each section and I'm going to wrap each one in the same direction. So this entire triangle is going to have vertical sections, and each curl is going to be wrapped in the same direction, all with the same technique of a flat barrel curl. And we're going to work very carefully and methodically to create the foundation. Once that's completed and I have my curl set in place, then what we're going to do is we're going to start to explore the texture and the technique. So what that means is I'm going to take a brush first and I'm going to start to brush it all out, smoothing that hair, bringing that hair all together. Now, from here, I really want us to start to explore that the technique does not control the style, that really essentially we are the ones that do that. So as you can see, as I'm brushing all the hair out, I'm just going to hold it loosely, and I'm just going to watch to see what that curl is creating. So as you'll notice, I'm brushing it and bringing the hair all together, and then I'm just going to hold the ends and see what that curl is creating. Now this is lovely and wonderful, and I'm not opposed to just letting the hair do what it does. But for this particular technique, I really want to explore how we can drive the hair to do what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an S-wave. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to brush and comb that hair down, and then where I want that hair to bend, I'm going to bend it. I'm not going to let the hair bend where it chooses to. I'm going to be the decider of where that hair goes. So I'm taking my hands and I'm pinching them together, and then I'm pulling that through and then bending the hair. And then after I've done that, I'm going to replace what I've held with a clip. And I'm going to let that clip go up so that the hair falls into that clip. And then as I continue, you'll notice I'm going to bend the hair again where I want, and I'll place my finger to secure it, and then I'm going to put in a clip to help make sure that that hair stays in place. Then we're going to start to explore different tools to help control and work with this hair. So now I'm using the back of a flat iron to just use that heat to help just soften up and support. I can also, as I continue working, start to look at using different tools, such as a curling iron as well, to help support and control that hair. So the flat iron on the surface of that flat iron doesn't get as hot as obviously a curling iron. So here I am, I'm using that curling iron to help bend and support whatever I've created. And then as I want to, if I want to create more of a ridge, I can use that curling iron, or I can also take my flat iron and bend that hair and pinch it together and then close that iron on top. So there are so many ways to create different textures and different movement in the hair. So then just to finish it as an idea, I'm just using some hairpins to secure it, taking those clips out. But essentially what's most important is that we understand that we drive the hair to do what we want. But I don't want us to be too rigid with that. So what that means is even though I've moved that hair in one direction, I can actually then repeat it and change it. So as you can see, I'm brushing it all out, and because I went one way, I still have the choice to go the other. So as I was working with it, now I'm working on the opposite direction. So that technique is just there to support what I'm trying to create. It does not determine the look. So because I set it one way, I'm now just going to bring it the other way, following with the same technique, bending it and moving it with my fingers, pinching it, and then securing it with a clip to go exactly where I want it to go. So essentially at the end, when we really understand how to control the hair using techniques and tools, these are wonderful ways to work with texture. But at the end of our style, it ultimately becomes about us, that we control the end result, not the technique, that we end up making the hair look the way we want because we are the ones that are masters of the hair that we're working with.